Oh, yes, it works. Whoa. How's everybody doing? Everybody enjoying this wonderful summer? Staying so nice and cool? Did anybody experience some outages today? A few people did. A few people did. So, yes, well, thank y'all for coming to our meeting. Greatly appreciated. I know that this was an extra meeting. Some of us just like meetings, but that is not why we're just having this because we like it. We wanted to cover a few things that we feel like where we left off, that there was some information that people still needed to know, and some people still wondering, okay, where exactly are we and where are we going to move forward with this? So we felt it was important to come together again and have this discussion and see where we're moving forward. There's a lot of things that we're trying to do for our district, and it all depends on timing. What's the best timing to do things? So thank you all for being here and giving of your evening. We won't waste any time, and I'm going to ask Dr. Taganoff to start it off for us.
No. How's that for a start off? Okay, I'm moving away from it. They're coming to give me support. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are excited again to be able to meet and convene together so that we can discuss and make plans for the future of our district. As you know, we cannot do this alone, and we are more than happy to welcome you all here so that we all have a voice and are able to make decisions in a collective way. So these meetings are super important. If you missed last meeting, every meeting we start off just by giving a little bit of a recap, so you will not be lost, but if you are, please feel free to ask any questions. Like Dr. Ball said, we are trying to make plans and trying to make the best decisions for our district, for our community, and our students, but it all depends on a lot of information and the things that are happening around us. So we are going to get into that a little bit today, and at the end, we're going to ask for a committee recommendation because this is a board advisory committee. We are going to take a recommendation from this committee to the board, and we'll get to that towards the end of our presentation. So just to start off, we've got screens all around, so you should be able to see. You also should have been able to pick up a handout, so you can feel free to take notes. But rest assured, we will post the recording. We will post all of the survey results and the presentation on our website where everything lives, on our growth and planning website. So we're going to go over a summary of our last meeting that we had in June at Hopkins Elementary. We are also going to discuss some survey results. So I'll talk a little bit about a brief kind of take a pulse on the community survey that we put out last week. We'll have a brief discussion about safety versus security. I think there needs to be some clarification on what those really mean and how we as a district view each of those terms. We'll do a brief more information, a little presentation on some information that we've gathered since our last meeting, and then we'll end with an activity where we're going to poll a recommendation from this committee. We start every meeting. I just want to remind you what your work has done. We worked a lot in the beginning when we started to convene our meetings on what are our priorities as a committee. And these are the priorities that we came up with as a committee that we said we were going to look at whenever we made any type of commitment, whenever we made any type of recommendation. We were going to come back and make sure that our decisions were grounded in the priorities that the committee, you all, came up with. So you can see they're listed here, and of course we have in red and highlighted safety, which is providing a safe and secure schools by improving access control, monitoring facilities, and enclosing our campuses, because that was what was important to this committee. And so in light of a lot of tragedies that are happening in recent times, in recent weeks, even this past weekend, it's more important now than ever to really take a hard look at what is happening, what is the state of our district, what improvements we need to make, what's currently in place, and how do we look at that information to move forward. So I want to go back and just talk briefly about meeting 5. This was our June meeting that we had at Hopkins Elementary, and if you were there, thank you so much for joining us. If you weren't there, you can view the meeting. It's posted online on our website. We talked a lot in that meeting about the state of our district in regards to safety and security. So we had some information that was shared, and towards the end of our meeting, we got some input from the committee members that were there. We did an activity where we asked the committee, in regard to safety and security and the information that was shared, what types of things does the district need to keep doing? What do we need to stop doing? And what is it that we need to start doing? So based off of that input and all of that feedback from our committee members, this is just a brief overview of what themes rose to the top. So you can see that under KEEP, the committee agreed that the growth and planning meetings and community input was really important. They agreed, or you agreed, to keep a visitor check-in and badge system to ensure that we are tracking our visitors that are coming in. Keep exterior doors locked with one entry point so that we could closely monitor those things. Some things in the stop category is breaking processes regarding visitor check-ins and IDs. I think that we have had lots of really strong processes in the past, but sometimes it's easier to just say, oh, I know you. No need to give me your ID. So it is not that we are trying to break the rules, but sometimes we get comfortable. And I think it's really important for us to stop and really evaluate, okay, safety and security of our students and our staff is not convenient all of the time. We have to give up certain conveniences to ensure that all of our processes are being followed and are being followed legitimately. And so that's what that means there. Leaving doors propped open or unlocked, again, it's probably more of a convenience thing that these kind of things are happening. And this last one that rose to the top, allowing the sense of urgency to wane. And I think that that's a really important statement because I think that we all in this room agree that safety and security of our students and our staff should always be of highest priority, and that sense of urgency should always be the driving force of the decisions that we make. Some really, really great ideas on START. Some of the common themes that rose up to the top are police presence on all campuses. This one came up, investing in social workers or counselors to really focus on the social emotional aspect of our students, a bond specific to safety, programs that included more volunteers and parents like your watchdog programs and such, more community and parent involvement in safety planning. So that was specifically brought up several times, not just more community and parent involvement in general, specific to I want to have a voice in the safety procedures that are happening on the campuses. Holding meetings in Spanish, a super great point that got brought up multiple times. Hall monitors, teacher aides, so basically more staff, so we have more eyes on students, on entryways and such. More professional development, and this was an array, so I kind of grouped them. Professional development in threat assessment, tactical combat, identify staff who are already trained in CPR or some of those other things like tactical combat or threat assessment, and leverage those people that are already trained in our campuses somehow. And then the last thing that kind of rose up to the top is to fix the things we can now. And we are starting to do some of those things as we speak. So this isn't all of the items that were listed for that activity. We had lots of poster boards floating around, lots of Post-it notes. So if you want to see every single suggestion, they are posted on the Growth and Planning website. You can see the list in full. We just wanted to group a couple of things that were rising up to the top so that you could see that we are looking at this feedback, we are listening, and we are not making decisions on a whim. We're really looking at what is possible now, fix things that we can now, what is possible now, and what will be possible moving forward. Any questions so far? Okay. So last week, we put out a survey, a very short survey, and this was just a survey to get a pulse on what our immediate community was feeling. So a lot of times we can make the assumption like, yes, our community is feeling like this is important, they're really worried about this, they're very concerned about this, but we wanted to get, or they want this, but we wanted to get a little bit of hard data just to support what we're feeling, because we don't want to make decisions based on assumptions. We also want a little bit of data to back those decisions as well. So we did put out a survey. It was a Google survey. We sent it out to our families and our staff just to see where the pulse was, just to measure the pulse and see where people stood. When we developed this survey, we were talking a lot about some of these themes from our start, keep, and stop activity. One specifically was a bond specific to safety. So we wanted to pose a couple of questions out there just to see where we were at, or where the community, how the community was feeling. So the first question had to do with if the community would support a bond proposal that was specifically for safety and security improvements. You can see overwhelmingly 75% of the people that responded, which was a little bit over 3,100 people, were more likely to support a bond. We had about 5% that was not likely, and of course about 2% that was not in support, and about 19% that needed more information. And I'm glad that they didn't wane yes or no, or they weren't no's, because they are right. We need to provide more information about what would be in a safety and security type bond. So those are the respondents for that question. Then we asked a question about what ballot, what election year does the community feel would be the most appropriate to put a bond specific to safety and security. So we gave them three options, the three that are coming up. November 2022, which is just here in a couple of months, was the overwhelming winner at 89%. We had about 7% who voted for a May 2023 bond election. And then we had about 4% that's leaning towards supporting a November 2023 bond election. Yes, ma'am.
What was that percentage on May 2023?
7.2, ma'am. We also dared to use the words tax rate increase because we got some feedback that this was a topic that needed a lot more clarity. We needed to take more time to really talk about what this meant, what this looked like for taxpayers. So we put this question in here just to see what the support would be. So we asked, if we did just a safety and security bond, would you support a tax rate increase of no more than a penny? And then we gave an example of a home that was valued at $200,000 for a little bit of clarity. I did expect us to have some results that people needed more information, and you can see that they did. But we did have about 74.8% of the people who responded to this survey say that they would likely support a bond proposal if we did this tax rate increase. Now remember, the tax rate is what the school districts can control. your home values, and all of those other pieces of the tax evaluation is not under our control. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay, I know you said you sent it out to parents and staff.
we did.
Did you filter your results for this particular data to exclude people who did not fall into that families and staff list? For example, the link that you shared made its way around several neighborhood Facebook groups
Yeah.
where community members were given the opportunity to voice their opinions. Are their opinions included in this data?
If they were shared and if they clicked on the link, then they would be.
Okay.
So we had to open up the survey where it was shareable and you can provide more than one answer. Otherwise, somebody would need to enter their email or log in, and we didn't want to put that type of a restriction on a survey just to get a quick feel. So yes,
I think that provides some perspective about this.
absolutely.
question, because I think if you only ask parents and staff if they're willing to spend a little bit more money on their kids, you might get a different response than you would from some of our
Community.
community members who were reluctant to vote in support during the last election.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. And I think that we do need to get that data from our community. 100% is something that we need to do. I know that we've talked about the bond, the last bond, and all of the things that we learned, all of the things should have, would have, could have. Getting community input from the broader community, which is not our staff and not our parents, is going to be really important moving forward, because we need to work and make assumptions or make decisions not based on what we think, but really what's out there. So the more information that we can get from our broader community and the more that we can communicate the information is going to be better for
So when
us.
the survey was designed, we may already be starting to see some of that feedback.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions on these three questions, initial questions? Yes.
My question isn't really with what that meeting was, but the external assessment. Remember, we were supposed to be getting that information in July, according to my notes, and I might be wrong. I think that's really important for people to have, for them to make a decision to respond. Are we still on track for July?
We are going to talk about the external assessments in a later slide. And when you talk the external assessments, we're talking about the facility ones,
Yes.
correct? Yes. Let me see if I can. We should be finished with that assessment in August.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? And we will talk a little bit more about it. Okay. So now we're going to talk just a little bit about words, semantics, safety, security. I think that when we talk about safety and security, they're like interchangeable, right? We want safe schools, secure schools. We want to focus on safety and security. But I think for clarity purposes, to provide more context, to make sure that if we do go out for another bond package, we're really telling a story about what some of these items mean. So when we talk about safety and security, if you took, raise your hand if you took the survey or you saw the survey. Okay, so there were a lot of items on there that maybe you thought in your head, well, what does this have to do with safety and security? I thought we were talking about, more cameras, more this and that. And so I think that it's important for us to define what we mean when we say safety versus what we mean when we say security. So we have these meetings and we discussed as a team, what does it really mean to us? So that when we start building propositions or packages, we can really tell that story or differentiate some of these items to our communities, to our staff, to our families. And so you can see here, and I won't read you the Merriam-Webster definitions of each of those items, but we there was a process. We looked at what is the definition, then we went around and we talked about, well, what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to you, and a lot of discussion about, well, it's a feeling, it's not really a physical thing, and this is that. And so then we pared it down and we came up with these definitions on how we want to define each of these terms. So safety is about those specific actions that we implement around our buildings or in our buildings to prevent accidental injury or harm. Okay, and I'm going to give you a few examples. Security, on the other hand, are those specific actions that we implement in and around our buildings that provide an environment that feels safe from danger or threat. So these could be from individuals, these could be from groups, these could be from natural disasters. Okay, so keeping those two terms and definitions in mind, we go back to the list that was listed in our survey, and this isn't new, so if you didn't see the survey, these items were presented in several growth and planning meetings of identified priorities of the district. And so we can group some of these items in safety versus security. So you can see on this slide, we put things for safety, which we said, remember, these are things that we're implementing in or around our buildings to basically prevent accidental harm or accidental injury. So these are things like our bus replacements. You might have thought, if you took the survey, what does this have to do with security? But it's really more about the safety aspect. We need more buses. We need to decrease the amount of time students are traveling from one school to the next. And so that's in there. Elementary playground safety upgrades, so that we're equitable across campuses. We have some elementary schools that still have mulch. We have some elementary schools that have, I'm not saying the word right, soft surfaces. What are they called? Safe surfaces. Surfaces that provide a more safe play environment for those kids. It's not rocks or mulch or weeds. So that's why those pieces are grouped in there. Then you see the security piece, which is the red block, and those are those things that are your cameras, your phones that are camera and voice operated, those things like public address systems, security vestibules, the automated lockdown ability. And so those are what those things are. Then we have a category that's kind of both. So some of you that may have seen that list, AC in the gyms. They're trying to get that AC in the gyms, but it is really in both of those categories because air conditioning in those gyms, y'all, it's hot out there. And so when you're in a gym, it's very hot. We want to prevent heat stroke. We want to prevent those type of accidental injury, accidental harm things. But also, in order to make that a more comfortable space, people are propping the doors open. And so what is that? That's easy access for someone to get inside of a building because it's hot. And so it falls in both of those categories because of that. You can talk about the same thing with your fencing upgrades, your parking lot lighting repairs. If you're staying late at night, you want to walk out there and make sure that you're not, accidentally stepping on a rock. You want to make sure that you can see your car and get your keys, but you also want to make sure that you can be seen under the light, and maybe you can see more of the environment around you and be more aware of that. And then, of course, we've got on there radio upgrades and replacements. So those are your walkie-talkie radios, and that could serve as both purposes. We need you to go to this room right now, or hey, there's a spill in the hallway and I need you to go and clean it. And so there are some things that we could probably look at the blue and the red and maybe put a few more things in both, but this gives you just more of a general idea of if you're thinking about safety versus security, we have it defined on what it is that we mean, okay? So going to the question that was asked on the survey, we asked people to just look at the identified priorities that we'd already discussed in prior growth and planning meetings, and just select 5 items, your top 5 items that you would want to see or that are important to you, important for you to see in a particular bond. And you can see that information ranked 1 through 20, and you can also see it color-coded. So your red text are those that are security issues. Your orange ones are the ones that can go in both categories. And then you can see your blue ones are the ones that lean over to the safety side of it. What is rising to the top? Security. Security. Definitely. So I'll give you just a second just to kind of look over these results. Yes, ma'am.
Are they all pretty much the same? Like at our campus, when you enter, a parent can go left or right without front desk even knowing about it because we can't see them. So is that kind of the same thing at all campuses, or are they all kind of different?
So actually, I think you're supposed to use this. I got it, Russ.
Is that better? No. Is that better? The question that I had was, like at our campus, when a parent walks in, they could go to the left or the right, bypassing the front desk because we can't see them because, of course, there's a wall and then there's a door. Is it like that at all campuses? Are things going to be changed? Or I didn't know if all campuses were similar like that because I haven't been to all the campuses.
Right. No.
Woodlake Hills?
So not all campuses are like that, but our plan is definitely to secure with safety vestibules or have stronger or improved access control so that the one entry point is forced for somebody to be able to go in and sign in using our procedure for visitors. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. I just didn't know, like, I've only been to the ones where we've had meetings, so.
Oh, got it.
But it's been after hours, so I never have seen it during active hours, like
Got
school
it.
hours, so I just didn't know if they were all the same.
Okay. Okay. So another thing about this question is you may need, or you may have needed a little bit more context, a little bit more clarity when you were ranking them. You can see on here, like, what is network upgrades? Like, what does that have to do with safety and security? Or what is it about, like, infrastructure and campus wiring? So I wanted to just take a couple minutes to explain those certain things, those certain items, and then also show you a couple of slides on how all of these things are correlated, okay? So in order to have, and any of the teams step in if I'm saying it the wrong way, in order to be able to achieve some of these top items, like an automated lockdown ability to be able to lock the campus down, we have to also have the right wiring in place and infrastructure in place on the campus, and sometimes network so that we can work through a Wi-Fi connection or an internet connection. And so that's why some of those items are in there. But without explaining that, it might be, we don't need network upgrades. We need all of these security things. But it's very important to remember, and it's very important that when we are communicating what projects may go into a future bond, that our team and everybody is informed of how each of these items really affect each other. So the next couple, I think you just have it on 2 slides, but the next couple slides here shows you how some of these items are interrelated. So I took some of the top things and the team helped develop, like, if we want automated lockdown ability, we also need all the things around this. We need an emergency notification system. We need the network upgrades. We need access controlled panels and ID badges. We need the infrastructure and the campus wiring in order for this to happen. So while it might not seem on its own super important and a priority, in order to be able to do number one at 73%, just based on this small survey, we need all of those things to happen. And so you can see this was the second one, access control upgrades. We need all of those same things in place in order to make access control upgrades happen. For security cameras, same thing. We need all these things to happen. And so learning from the last bond, it's going to be vital to be able to explain that to our stakeholders, to make sure that they understand that it's not network upgrades. We don't want faster Wi-Fi. We do, but not just because we want, faster Wi-Fi, but each of those things serves a specific purpose. Each of those things serves a way that we can do these security items where we can do them efficiently and effectively. Sure.
I guess maybe I'm not understanding what the emergency response system is, because like most of the reasons, or most of the little circles make sense to me. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding, right?
I'm going to pull my help card. Hold on. So the question, I'm going to get in trouble. The question was, can you explain the emergency notification system?
My name is Matthew Fields. I'm the Executive Director of Technology. The emergency response system or notification system is going to be what we see at most schools as, just lost the name. No. Scans cards. Raptor. Thank you. Wow. Brain fart. So that would be part of that system. So if somebody comes in, we scan their ID, they are a known sex offender, we're going to immediately get a report that, hey, we have a sex offender at the front desk. Chief of police is going to get that same notification. The officer that's assigned to that school is going to get that notification as well. Something else that may happen with some other systems that we're looking at is it would lock down the school if they are on a known watch list. Would send out a notification to the parents or the community, let them know that would happen. Is that good?
Thanks.
So the question was, does the school have something like that right now? Okay, so we do have Raptor in all of our schools, which is the ID scanning, and it does alert us if there's, like I said, sex offenders or known watch list offenders. What we're looking for, though, is to also implement something that lets us know that there's a safety thing. So we're on a lockdown. Every kid that has a cell phone should be able to tap a button that says I'm safe, right? So that's what we're looking for. We want the parents to be able to log into their app and see kids safe. So we have a reporting mechanism for that as well. But to answer your question, yes, we do have Raptor in all the campuses. It doesn't put it into automatic lockdown, but it does, like I said, notify the key holders that there's somebody there. Yes, ma'am.
So you want to put something like similar to what they have at universities where the students and the parents get notified, like stay away from.
So the question was, do we want to put something that's at universities that notifies everybody? Yes, so we do want to add that as well. You got a question?
I was just going to mention the Raptor program doesn't seem to work very well, and that may be the internet connection, because I don't know how many times I've gone to the school and they're like, oh, it's down right now.
So there's a concern with the Raptor system not working at all the campuses. So I will let you know that we are POCing many different options because we have heard that. We don't want that to be a limitation. So we do have a renewal for Raptor every year, and we want to make sure that we're renewing the right thing. So this is something that, although it is on a bond issue, it is something we still are looking at currently for our safety concerns. What campus is that?
I've been at several campuses. My daughter was at elementary with Rolling Meadows, and now she's at Jefferson Middle School.
And both of those campuses throughout the year?
I've been at several other campuses, and it's the same thing. So just randomly. And it may be an internet issue. I know a lot of our internet.
And I have to just double check because sometimes people will still know, and then this is the first time that we hear that it's not working, so just need to double check.
So there should not be any internet issues with Raptor. We have seen some issues. We've reported them to Raptor, and like I said, we are looking at all options. Just complete transparency. Any others? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Matt. All right. So, that one doesn't like me. So we're going to go into our next steps. We do have a little bit of information that we want to share before we go into our voting and our recommendations that we want to put forth to the board. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Atkins, our Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, and he's going to share a little information with you.
So I know we've talked about, do we do November, do we do May? And there's some logistical stuff in November that could make this a very difficult bond to pass. The deadline to call an election is August 22nd. We won't have our safety and security audit information until October. So it's kind of hard to put a package together. Some of the other things, well, our facilities audit should be done in August. Now they're looking at the age of our facilities and those kind of things, and the safety and security audits looking at the whole safety and security of the facility. Some of the other things, do what? Oh. We wouldn't really know what the amount of the bond package would be because we won't have that data. And hopefully the economy is going to stabilize a little bit and we'll have maybe some better pricing. And so those are some of the things when we start thinking about, do we go in November? Do we go in May? We have to think about. Yes, ma'am. No, when we call the bond, we have to have a dollar amount. We don't necessarily have to have the package, but without having a package, it's hard to put a dollar amount to it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Am I on? Okay. I'm on? Okay, so this is just a little bit more information we wanted to share with you. We, of course, just based on our identified priority list, we've done a lot of internal things. We've done a lot of assessments just to see. We are working on things now that we can address, but wanted to share some of this information with you because as a board advisory committee, our job is to bring recommendations to the board. And I'd like to also acknowledge, hi, Ms. Pichelle is here from our board. Thank you so much for all of your support. So we do have to talk about it in our groups and then think about what is it that this committee is going to present to our board as a recommendation to move forward. So I'm going to give us a few minutes to just kind of talk in our tables about some of this information and just some of the information that we shared based on the survey. Of course, it's a sampling of what the feeling is out there. And then we're going to complete we are going to complete a poll. You are going to recommend an election that you would support for a bond package moving forward that we can then take as the Growth and Planning Committee recommendation. So before you do this poll, I do want to give a few minutes for you to just talk and discuss at your tables. We'll kind of just walk around and answer any questions that you may have if we can answer them. But just take a few minutes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So the question, good question, is do we have the data on previous bonds to see the success on a May versus November? I do not have it today, but I know we can get that information. Yes, ma'am. And we do still have our regularly scheduled Growth and Planning Committee meeting on the 25th, which is next Monday. So I will make sure that I get that information. People are taking notes for me. Thanks, friends. Any other question? Any other question? Unless, any other questions? Yes. So I think your question is, you want to know that everything that we're talking about as far as security upgrades and safety items that we've just discussed, are they going to be in place at the start of this school year, or do we need to wait for a bond to fund? So those items that we have discussed, we would have to wait for a bond, but there are some things that we are currently working on, such as, oh, y'all are already taking the poll. Please, oh, okay, let me just take it off then so no one will see. I mean, y'all are on A. They wanted A. Yes. So let me just, I think there is a particular school that we are working on for, oh, we talked about it. Miss Lacey, help me out.
Hi, I'm Lacey Gosh, the Assistant Superintendent of Technology. So there are some projects based on budgeted funds that we are able to begin. The problem is we are not able to do it district-wide, nor are we able to hit all the locations that need to be hit. So what we are working on right now, an example of that might be security cameras. There are certain locations that security cameras are being upgraded and replaced, but it is basically one site at a time based on when budgeted funds are available. The numbers of cameras, I know I've shared with this committee before, that we need are in closer to about 1,800 or more, which are much higher. We are not able to do that before the start of the year. And that would also be true for some of the other programs like our access control that we have at the campuses. We are able to do some, but we do not have the local funds to be able to do all without the processing of a bond. Right. Yes, that is correct. And I'm going to let Mr. Fields talk about, so we are also doing some upgrades on the infrastructure side, but not to the extent that would be needed for all of it. But I'll let him address that specifically.
So, can I be the devil's advocate?
Into something for August 2022
So I want to be the devil's advocate, because if I do go out and I publicize what we're doing as upgrading access control or cameras. Right. So if I go out and do that, I now let everybody know that there's security issues at another school that's the same thing. So now I'm advertising what our weak points are. Does that make sense? So I can say in general, we're upgrading access control, we're upgrading cameras, but I can't go tell you that I'm putting 60 more cameras outside the building because we can't see the road from there. Things like that. Does that make sense? Gotcha. Okay.
So that's actually what Dr. Ball said at the last meeting, the May meeting, was that we will not, period, actually, get new cameras for our school, now which we are in desperate need of.
What school are you at?
Until the next fall.
What school are you at?
Jackson High School.
Okay.
And, Dr. Ball said we will not put those cameras until this bond goes through. You're saying we might?
No. So as we are going throughout, we are budgeting the years, getting approval from board to be able to upgrade campuses on a need be.
So let me take a little break here and talk a little bit more about some other things, okay? So I love this discussion. This discussion is fabulous. It's wonderful. But I know you've been to a lot of our meetings, probably all of them, right? I know y'all have been to, if not all of them, pretty close to all of them. Within this group, I see a lot of familiar faces, which that leads me to believe that if this group that you've been coming to these meetings, you've been participating, if we don't have clarity right now within ourselves, how can I have clarity with over 40,000 people that are registered to vote? Then there's another part on here that I do not want to minimize because it's so important. August 29th, the mail out ballots go out. If they go out again like they did last year without that clarity, without that information, you know what's going to happen? Same thing. They're going to vote no. They're going to vote no. So what my worry is that we rush this out of fear, okay? But then we get the same result. We get the same result. We can't keep doing that over and over. And let me tell you, I was one of the ones that my team had to rein me in because I was ready and I wanted to go for November. But after thinking about it, having several people discuss things with me, I can't go for November unless we are really sure that we're going to pass it. All of this information right here, these are the things that you and many others have been asking me about for a long time, but these aren't quick turnarounds. This is taking a while. Things happen. I could give you 2 examples of something that happened today. I was supposed to have a meeting on Wednesday. Somebody else still had COVID, so that meeting's postponed. You know, so things like that are still happening. So though I'm telling you, I'm hoping August, there could be something that happens because people's businesses, people's teams get sick, things happen. So if I say, well, you know what, let's push it. Let's make sure we work 24/7 and have something out the week before. Am I really doing us a good service? Am I doing justice to the team? So looking at all these things, this one right here, communication and clarity with the community, if I don't have it in this room, I won't have it for the entire community. Now, I know that all of us in this room, one thing we could all agree on, we all want a bond, right? We all want this. We definitely all want this. But when we do this, this time we have to get it right. We have to get it right. So as much as we might want it in May, people are going to ask, just like right now, this was perfect. Like if I had planned it, I'll pay you later, you know, like so people will say, well, okay, you're asking for 50 million. Does it really cover the cameras, or is it the wiring for the cameras? Or I thought I heard you say this and then you said that. So we got to get that information really clear, really clear. I'm going to time it. Take 3 minutes to talk at your table and then ask me some more questions afterwards, okay? So take 3 minutes to talk at your table so then you can ask me some great questions. Testing. So let me talk about something else real quick. I know that many of you watch our board meetings. And I honestly cannot remember if it was the last board meeting, the previous one, which one it was. But there was one thing I talked to the board about, because I shared, and I was very honest with a couple of you, and I had shared, I was a November person. I was a November person, and it was my team that said, hey, Dr. Ball, think about this. You want to do it right this time. So one of the things I had mentioned at the board meeting was that sense of urgency. I said, if we go in November, we'll have that sense of urgency. I still believe that we can have that sense of urgency, because this information will have that sense of urgency also, and it'll have the data and the facts behind it, and not just be Jeanette Ball's theory. It's just another thing Jeanette Ball wants to do. It'll come with data and facts, and that sense of urgency will still be there also. At the same time, I want you to know that what we can do to fix and to make things better, we are going to do that. We are going to work on things. There's huge projects. Somebody on this table mentioned about Woodlake Middle School. I don't know who it was. That Woodlake Hills. That one I can tell you no, because that one would take a bond. But there are some things that we could make work better for a little while until we have the permanent fix. So I would like to hear any questions that anybody has before we actually do the voting. Any questions or comments that anybody has? And is there anyone's there? This is live and there's no questions or comments. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Great question. We hope so, but let me address that. We have the state is giving $10 million. That is $10 million for all the school districts, okay, in the state of Texas, not just Bexar County, in the entire state, and charters. And so I have no idea how much that could possibly be. It could be as small as a couple of hundred, maybe a couple of thousand, but I'm not very hopeful on that, because $10 million, though it sounds like a lot, in reality, it is not a lot when you look at all the districts. And then they'll probably do it something by size, I'm assuming. So yes, that's a great question. Thank you. Great question. Yes, exactly. The comment was, it's like sharing $10 between everybody in this room. You're not going to get much. Yeah. Other questions or comments? Any question before I ask you to vote for A or B? Any questions that you're still thinking, I need to know this information before I share with Dr. Ball and then I share with the board? Before you vote, anything here that maybe doesn't make sense, or you want this whole group to take into consideration before they vote? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And I just know that it's a board decision about the police force.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really like for the
Right.
bond money.
Right.
Because I know like that's the thing that we talked about the last meeting about elementary schools. They don't have like really one police force on each campus, but only high school and middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And they only have like rotation. And now I just found out that we have to have 28 police, I think, but now they're down to 23. So with regards with that, and then this coming school year, now they're down, and then there's like 3 FMLA, I think. So there's,
But her concern was she wanted to know if bond will supplement for, police hiring.
No.
But I just found out that
Right.
that's
Right. The bond funds are for no salaries. No salaries. For no salaries. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anybody else have another question? Okay, go ahead. Take out your phone. Yeah.
For clarity, I know you all read the choices. If you select A, you're fully supporting and recommending a November 2022 bond election specifically for safety and security. That's all it would be for. If we're going to look at choice B, where you are fully supporting and recommended a May 2023 bond, that's going to be a comprehensive bond with prioritizing safety and security. So we are looking at including items that this committee has prioritized in the past. We would go through the same process of looking at our needs assessments and looking to make sure that the priorities we identified in the past bond that did not pass, past bonds that did not pass, are still the need. But the May one, we intend to include more than just safety and security items. However, we will prioritize the safety and security items in this particular bond. So I wanted to make sure that you read it all the way through. Okay, so you would you can access the survey on that website there, or you can text phone number 37607 and then text the message Judson ISD 877. And then once you have joined, you can put your selection in A or B. So let's see what the live results are. And I believe our viewers who are viewing live can also access the poll. Okay. And I'll give you about 30 more seconds. Anybody else in this room need more time? Okay. There's a couple of people over here that need a little bit more time. It should. We haven't closed it. Okay, anybody else in this room? Okay. So, the beauty of live polling. It looks like we as a committee would take a recommendation to the board for a May 2023 bond package. Okay.
We are still going to meet next Monday. That was the regularly scheduled. We are going to stay on top of this, and we are going to work this. And I just had told Nicole, I said, if it's the last breath I take, we're going to pass this bond. Okay. So, any questions or anything before we adjourn this meeting? Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Yep. All way before May. Yes. Before Christmas, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Bill, did you have something you want to share? Or before, right? Yeah. February's the last time to, the latest to call it, but. Right. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Right. So we have already been working on that with administrators. So as our teachers start to come back, the administrators will have that training. All our campuses have our operating management plans. Thank you. EOPs. So all principals are working on those. They're finalizing them right now. They in turn will go over that with their teachers, the new expectation. Yes, we'll communicate that with the parents. Absolutely. Some of the things, unfortunately, will probably make parents a little. I don't know what the word is, but we're going to be, very secure. So it's going to be locked down where we're not going to allow a lot of people to be coming into our buildings. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not anymore. Not anymore. We're taking. Yeah. Right. Yes. So it's and those are the types of things that I'm saying. People get frustrated because you have to wait in a longer line and it takes a little bit longer, but it's all worth it for these little precious ones right there. Yep. Yes. Yes. No, we are not going to do that. Mm-mm. Yes. Mm-hmm. The question was, are we going to require clear backpacks? And we are not. Okay. But great questions, whoever. What was that? Oh, okay. Any other questions? Well, I can't thank y'all enough for being here tonight. Thank y'all so much. We will see you again next Monday. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
If you can hear me still, the next